Hi everybody, Chef P here. I have a feeling later on I'm going to get a lot of questions about chef knives or which knife I think is the best, which knife you should go out and get. Well, these are the chef knives I use on a regular basis. And I use each one for a very specific reason because they all are better in certain situations than others. And over the years I've used very specific ones. When I started out, I had a smaller version of this. To put into context, this is an extremely large knife. It's a 12-inch chef knife. This is about a 6-inch chef knife, maybe even 8. This is only 6 inches, and this is only 6 inches, and it's just the size that I'm comfortable with, and I've always used. And the reason you want different ones is because they all perform, even though they're all the general chef knife of different places, they're just used differently and designed differently. If you ask a lot of chefs if they could only have one knife, they'd want the traditional French chef knife. That's why you see a lot in stores that they have a chef knife and a paring knife. Those are the two knives that you're going to want. Because small detail work, you want the paring knife for, and then this can do pretty much any job that you want. This is what they call a utility knife, and really the only big difference is that it's thinner, and because it's thinner, it's not as round as you'd see. This is what they call, Global calls, a vegetable cleaver, although you would also see that it has a few other different names, but it's a cleaver. That's what we call it. They just call it a chef's knife, because in different areas they're just shaped differently. These two knives are actually the same knife, they're just different colloquial designs, because a true cleaver would be flat across the top, not angled down with a curve. There'd be no curve, it would be flat and straight across. This is a santoku. I'm probably butchering that Japanese, but this is a santoku, this is a European style handle. They would just have a flat up and a wooden handle on, kind of like this design. It'd be flat up and straight across. There's none of this. This is a Daniel Bullard knife. I got extremely cheap at Winners. It was an awesome find. This is a Global, and this is the G5. They have a GS, which just has a different handle. And even I'll talk about this one as well. This is a Victorinox 12-inch chef knife. It's duller than the other ones because they use it on seafood, and you want a slightly dull knife for taking the skin off. I find, I'm not a professional fish cleaner, they want a sharp knife all the time. Although if you talk to them, they don't. They use a really sharp knife to take the fillets off, then they use the same knife to take the skin off, and it's just slightly dull enough that it doesn't cut through the skin, it just rips through it pulls the fat, because there's a layer of fat between the flesh and the skin, and it's perfect when it's just slightly dull. This is the chef knife I got when I got married. In the block that goes with this knife, there's a bunch of other knives, but I use this knife a lot. I use this knife probably more than this knife. This would have been my second knife I bought from these. This was my third, this was my fourth, and these were my fifth. I used this one a lot. And I use this one because it's a little bit lighter than the others, and it comes down to design of the actual knife. Japanese knives, these two designs, although not this particular one because this is more of a French Japanese design, French-German construction versus the Swiss or German construction of these. These knives are cheap, these two. You can tell just, even though they have full tang, which means the handle goes all the way, the blade goes all the way through the handle, which is nice. They're light, they're really thin compared to, you can see that is a lot thicker knife than that. And even that's even thicker than this one. So it's the design, but not the same construction that you would have from a traditional santoku, because of the way they sharpen their blades and the materials they use. Japanese knives are designed very much like they used to make samurai swords, in that they're thinner and they're sharpened at a lot steeper angle. These would be a 10 to 15 degree. These are a 22 degree. So what happens is this gets a lot thinner blade edge. It can slice very, very, very thinly. Other people will argue, well, these can shave just as thinly. That's what these were designed for. Very fine chopping, very fine slicing and dicing. These were, you can do that with these, but it's just, you'll see. I'll show you, you'll see. The other biggest thing is these knives can hold an edge in tougher situations better than these knives. Even though I sharpen these a certain way, not the traditional way, these are designed to do rough work. You can go through bone, you can go through things like that. These aren't really designed for that. I've sharpened them so that they can be, but they're because they're lighter. Like this is a lot lighter than this one. This is actually a lot lighter, even though it's all metal, is lighter than this one. This one is heavier than all the others, except for, that one might be close to about the same. But you can tell that it's heavier. It's got there's a lot more metal to this knife, even the thickness. Okay. You can see that's a lot different. And you can see I'm not even worried although you can hear that it's sharp. And you can hear it. You can hear that there's less metal. Right? You can see that it's a lot thinner at the blade than these ones. And it's just some of that's exactly how I sharpen it. I sharpen very, 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 very tight. So I actually do two edges. I do probably a 10 to 15 degree edge down, and then I put a very steep edge on the front so that, because I don't want to be sharpening my knives all the time, I find it stops me from nicking or anything else like that. I've actually never damaged any of my knives by cutting through anything. I've never bent an edge, never chipped a blade, none of that. But these are the basic kind of knives. If you're gonna go out and get a knife, you can get one of these or a yellow-handled Henkel. You'll see them when you get there if you go to a Cook supply store. One of these is your best bet to start out. If you can go and find a cheap, like I lucked into this at a Winners, you're good. These are a little bit more expensive, and you can get expensive. Like I don't spend a lot on knives because I'm not gonna plow through them. I've had these actually all a long time, but they're meant to be abused. And currently, I just can't justify spending $250 on a knife that I'm gonna run through the paces and is not gonna be any more better than these ones. Yeah, the steel is different and all these other things. The only knife I really want to try and see if it's a lot better is a ceramic knife, because you don't sharpen those; they keep the same edge. It's just harder than steel. So, but these are the basic knives. I'd have to say I use this one first, almost always. I use this one, that one at work, and these are the two I use at home. I use this one a lot for cleaning vegetables and fruit, because I'll probably do a video of the different techniques I have for cleaning vegetables and fruit very quickly. I do it a lot different than other people. But yeah, so those are the basic just chef knives. I haven't gone in through any of the other knives, so I hope you enjoy. Talk to you later.